Who's got questions? Yeah.
Where did you get that neat plastic arrangement?
This? I have no idea. I think I couldn't really tell you. I think it was probably like at either Goodwill or at like clearance at Meijer.
Do you annually double dig?
What do you mean? Double dig, like plant multiple times?
You
Oh,
dig twice.
yeah. So for what crop are you talking about? Are you talking about with like potatoes?
Everything.
I don't do it with that. So like if I'm growing potatoes, I'll dig down and then I'll plant it and I'll keep a berm over the side in a trench and then I'll slowly add more soil. What sort of plants are you double digging on?
Well, you dig twice down. So you get down about this deep.
Deeper than what are you talking about? Planting seedlings? I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what your question is.
You double dig the whole garden.
So you're actually saying going in to retill the whole garden. You usually do not retill a majority of my garden. I try to not walk on it throughout the year. I will till it when I'm starting a brand new, or if I'm going to try to put some amendments in if I'm not top dressing. Otherwise, if you go in and you're retilling year after year after year, you can actually screw up your soil structure. Because what that does is, especially if you're going in with like a rototiller, once you've already gotten it pretty nice and sliced up, you can actually go in and cut a lot of those soil particles even smaller again, and you're reducing how much pore space is in there. If you're talking about depth, if I'm going to go and plant anything that's coming in a pot, I'm going to dig a hole twice as wide and twice as deep when I plant it in there, so it's not compacted around that area. The other thing I'd tell you too, and we'll talk about this in the next workshop, is planting seedlings. Especially, we had a long conversation about planting tomatoes. How some people plant twice as deep, some people put them on their side. There's lots of value to that, but that's a whole other thing that we are still months away from having to deal with that.
You mentioned that the next workshop is I reserved
Yeah.
for a much longer.
So for the next workshop,
so that people can
yeah.
have more one-on-one consultation and bring in their.
So in February, what we're really talking about is having everybody come in, really talking about next steps, digging a little bit deeper, and then having everybody come in with a drawing of what you think you want to do and what plants you want to grow, so that we can really have a good, long discussion with myself and Estelle and whoever else might be in the room that wants to answer questions, or even each other. If there's someone who's grown a plant that Estelle and I do not have a lot of experience with and want to really talk about it, then, I mean, that's what makes it easier is when we can build a community to help each other. Yep.
Do we have to change soil every year in gardening, or we can keep letting some difference?
So it really depends on what you've done in your garden in the past.
Like
and
tomato.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're planting nothing but tomatoes every year, you're going to want to amend your soil every year because tomatoes use a lot. If you're mixing in tomatoes and your green beans or something that's going to help refix that nitrogen again, then you can just rotate and you can go every couple of years. I can tell you, I throw in a little bit of compost every year. One of the things that Deep Roots actually sells is biochar. If you guys have not heard about biochar is become the talk of the town because in every part of our culture right now, microbes have become the talk of the town. And biochar is basically a way for you to put a whole bunch of microbes in your soil. Biochar is something that you do once and then you don't have to do it again. So that's something that, you don't have to necessarily amend with biochar again for years unless you find that they're really using everything up. But usually you're going to add some sort of new soil every year. Because the other thing you have to think about, and this is where it's very funny to look at, when we first started doing research on plants, we thought it was just you add water, they use the water, and then the plant grows. And then they were doing research on palm trees growing in pots, and they found out that with the amount of soil, weight, and mass that was put in, and then the amount of water that was put in, and how much plant material was grown, that both the soil and the water were being used up. So you are going to notice that not only are you going to deal with compaction, but that your soil actually breaks down. So you're going to need to add more material over time. Okay, who's got another question? Yeah.
So if we want to have you guys deliver and install with that, when is the best time to do that?
That's an Estelle question. Estelle?
What?
Her question was if she wants Deep Roots to install and deliver a bed, when's the best time of year to have that done? Are you talking about sorry, I guess I might have misunderstood your question. Are you saying for trying to get your gardening started on time, or for how quickly they can get your raised bed?
For getting the garden started.
Okay, yeah. Then never mind. That isn't your question. So you're going to want to make sure that you have it, majority of the times around here, I usually put all my seeds in the ground, or almost all of them for my spring stuff, April 15th. And I don't really wait. Like if it looks like there's going to be a cold snap the next week, I just do it. If it looks like it's going to get warm before then, I'll go out before then. But April 15th is kind of the day. So if you have it in and ready to go by beginning of April, because usually they would argue that the last really, the 28-degree frost is sometime in March, and then the 32-degree frost is sometime in April. But a lot of the plants that you're going to grow in the early spring can deal with everything in April, the majority of April. So I go with April 15th.
So then the stealth part of the question is how...
If she wants it by April 15th, when does she have to get it ordered?
Now would be good. Because we already have 3 orders, and we make them all custom, and we build them ourselves. So if everybody gives us 10 orders on April, the week before April 15th, it's going to be very difficult for us. We're very small. We have a small workshop.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Yeah, hit me.
I've had a horrible fungus in my yard.
Okay.
Everything was great 30 years ago for like 2 years. And then the fungus started, so we just gave up for 10, 15 years. We put in the raised beds, and the fungus was right back.
I've got a couple of... So when you say fungus, are you talking about something that's growing on the plants, or are you talking about like just fungi?
Yeah, I've been told like this tomatoes and cucumbers, the leaves wither and turn brown.
Okay. So the first thing I tell you is it sounds like you definitely have a drainage problem, and that you're probably dealing with too much moisture. And that's the last couple of years have also not been good for that because it has been wet all the time. A couple of really good ideas as if you've been mulching. The reason I'm saying
The
it,
first years ago we did.
yeah, the reason, and that's where I would mulch with like a straw as compared to
Okay, we did mulch with straw.
this past year.
That was close, 2 years.
Okay.
3 years.
The reason I'm bringing that up is that'll help actually keep the evaporation from getting so crazy. Because what you're dealing with the moisture. First, it's all coming down out of the sky. And then it's going to evaporate back out of the soil. And by putting a mulch layer down, you're going to give yourself some time for it to not evaporate so quickly and let all of everything above the ground to dry off. If you're touching your soil and it's still like really wet, like I'm talking like clay, not even clay, like soupy, then you're actually going to do more than a mulch issue. You're going to have to go in and amend your soil with something to try to get more pore space in there. Whether you mix in something like a biochar, or if you go in and you mix in, you can mix in like a perlite or vermiculite or anything else, or even just try to put in like a rock seam through the middle of your yard to try to get a French drain or something going. But I don't know if it's really that wet. If you're just dealing with your plants are getting brown and they're not just getting completely waterlogged and stop growing, my bet is you're dealing with the fact of the moisture's coming down from the sky and then it's evaporating back up. And because we kept on dealing with so much rain day after day after day after day, we were having trees die left and right everywhere throughout the state because of that issue.
I think there was a tree above on the tree there was some bugs. I don't know, there was something dripping, and I noticed that it was dripping on the plants, and they were getting brown spots too. So it could be that
and it's
we
trapping.
had to trim it.
Yeah. Because then you trim the tree, and now the sunlight can hit, and it's going to be able to warm that
There
up.
was some kind of bugs on the tree that they were, I don't know, it was maybe making the tree sick, that it was producing some kind of juice to protect themselves. Something was dripping from it.
That's possible. I don't know specifics of what your situation is. Generally, though, if you're getting your tree and it's getting bugs in it, a majority of the time that's not going to affect everything underneath. And a lot of the tree bugs we get around here, depending on what trees you have, and I'm going to put aside like ornamental flowering trees. A lot of our native trees, if you get bugs in them, if you get like little funny galls on your leaves, it'll usually just, besides affecting your leaves, it's not going to actually hurt your tree. So I bet the reason that you saved yourself, you cut those tree branches off, you gave the air wave to evaporate off, and the sunlight to come down and burn off all that moisture. And it's been a couple of weird years, and the moisture's been really bad. The springs have been so rainy that you need to be able to burn off that moisture, and that's what my bet is. Especially if it was all of your plants.
It starts at the edges and they just start curling.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Overwatering is basically what it's the side effect of overwatering. If it was an actual mold, it wouldn't be brown like that. Anybody else? So seriously, if anybody wants any of these magazines, I've got a whole bunch of them. So pick through and see what you want.